Hello travelers, Boardman21 here, and today we're going to discuss Summon Wolf. Now you guys voted. Our last skill discussion was a few days ago. We discussed Black Hole and several different ways to build it, some of the pros, some of the cons, some of the suggestions we had for it, and now we're going to do the same thing with Summon Wolf. Pros, cons, suggestions, some things we'd like to see, some things that would be epic if it was added to the tree. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into it. Alright, some things to note about this video that makes it different than the other skill discussions that we've done is in this one I will not have a naked character. We're not going to have naked passives. We're going to actually have those filled out. This is actually a full-fledged build. One, that makes it a lot easier for me to go re-level the skill real quick so we can do the different builds. But two, the Summon Wolf doesn't actually give you a damage per second. There's no DPS tooltip on it, and the other thing, we're basically going to be discussing the different ways to build it and what those ways do, something that I wouldn't be able to prove to you whether I was wearing gear or not, such as building defensively, building offensively, such as having it retaliate with lightning strikes or having it have howl on kill. These things don't really matter whether you have gear on or not. So we're going to have gear on this character. If you've noticed that when we're attacking the training dummy later with some of the things, just to look at some of the attacks like Ice Bite and stuff, that's all that is. It just doesn't make a difference really on this build, so I left it all on. One thing that I thought I would do in this video, start something fresh, something new. If you guys like it, let me know in the comments below. If you don't, we'll get rid of it. But basically, I'm going to hover over all of the nodes, or at least most of them, and kind of discuss that node in particular, what's good about it, what's bad about it, and if it should be changed, why it should be changed, and how it should be changed. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll go to the left side of the tree first. Some of these will go really quickly because they're just going to be like a damage step, like, yeah, cool. And other things will be like an interactive, thing, like such as being able to summon all of your wolves to the limit, that we'll discuss a little bit and see if it needs any changes. So we got the Savage Hunters up first, more damage. Awesome. It's a multiplicative. Perfect. Leave it the way it is. Legendary Bite gives melee damage, stun chance, and more melee crit chance. Awesome. Leave it the way it is. This Victory Howl. Wolves have a chance to howl on kill. This does not expend Howl's mana cost or put it in a cooldown. Okay, so some things about this. As it is right now with the skill tree, it works perfect. 10% on kill chance is awesome. That's per wolf. So if you have, 6 wolves running around and each one's getting different kills, you can get up to a 30% chance for each one individually. So multiple of them could howl if they both killed enemies at the same time. That's awesome. But there's something that I wish that this skill tree had that it doesn't have, and that's a solo wolf. I wish there was a node where you could get an alpha wolf. Just one node. I don't care where it is in the tree. It doesn't really matter. Maybe somewhere, these ones are really far out where you have pack hunters and safety numbers. Maybe up top here, somewhere hidden, or just somewhere off the field. You would have one where you take it, and you can no longer summon more than one wolf. It puts you into a solo companion mode. You can only have one wolf, but it's considered an alpha wolf, and it gets 100% more damage and 100% more health. And that's it. But then it's interactive with other nodes in the tree, and something like this, where it's howl on kill, this becomes a 50% chance because you only have one wolf. So you no longer have 6 wolves with 30% chance, you now have one wolf and it has a 50%. So it would have a hybrid effect, and it would say you have a 50% chance to howl if you only have one wolf. Then we have Snarl, and this gives a chance for you to make the wolves howl on your kill chance. You can get up to 4%. That's awesome. This will also make howl give you 100% melee damage. Now the reason that's awesome is because this makes the companion ability synergize with you. It really synergizes the build together. So I honestly would love to see more nodes like this. So really cool. Make sure that stays if this skill ever does see a rework. Then we got Tundra Stalkers, and this gives cold damage to your companions and gives them the cold tag so they can benefit things like Warcry, which gives cold allies increased cold damage, which is awesome, and it increases their stun chance. This is an awesome node. I wish there were more types like this. Of course, you have cold and you have lightning, but I mean, we all know we'd love to see some fire wolves, yeah? Then we have Frozen Fangs, which gives Ice Bite chance, and Ice Bite is an amazing skill. It gives your wolves basically an AoE, it gives them more damage, it's a huge boost in radius, and then of course all of the damage that Ice Bite does is converted to cold, so it's a full cold attack, which is really awesome if you want to build cold wolves. Love this node. We got Winterborn for some chill chance, that's obvious. 1 point in Pack Hunters, which gives you a +1 maximum wolf as well as +1 maximum companions. This is a very powerful node. The only thing that I hate about this node being so far over in this tree, or being in this skill tree in general, is the fact that if you want a lot of companions, so for instance, what I'm thinking of is the Storm Crow that's coming, that allows you to summon your Storm Crows without even building into the tree. You can summon them up to the maximum limit. I'm already thinking in my head, well, this means I need to summon Wolf Spec, even if I don't use the Wolf, just to get the +1 maximum companion. So it's cool that it's in here, but it's also like one of those things where when you try to capitalize on all these companions, it's something that I kind of wish was like another one in the passive tree or somewhere else, but it can stay. I honestly think maybe it should just be a +1 wolf. The +1 maximum companion makes it to where this skill almost becomes necessary even if you don't use it in any sort of build where you want the maximum amount of companions. Then we got Earthborn, gives armor and physical health leech. Pretty obvious. Wolf and Recovery, health regen plus 75% per point. Now this has become an OP node. The reason this node is so powerful now is that health regen on your gear has turned flat, so you can get 200, 240 flat health regen for your companions, and that's just with tier 5 stats. That's not even getting into the exalted realms. So you can get 3 tier 5s, they get about 70 to 80 each, and when you have that 200 flat health regen, this is a percentage increase, which most percentage increases have disappeared, but this can give you 300% increase. So if you have 200 flat health regen for your companions and you put 4 points in this, they now get 800 health per second, which if you have them with the endurance they now get that you can have with the passive tree, you give them some defensive stats or you give them lots of dodge, they don't take 800 damage a second, which means you're just never going to see them die. I've pushed them into empowered nodes. This is a very powerful node. I have a feeling that percentage will go down, or this will get reworked into a flat health when there's a rework on the skill tree, or it gets balanced and updated, or whatever they decide to do with it. But right now, very powerful node. Your wolves just cannot die when you take this and have tier 5 or higher affixes for flat health minion regen. Then we have Stormborn, and this is a very cool node. This has lightning strike retaliation chance, up to 25% chance. This also stacks with another node that gives more chance later. But this basically means that whenever a wolf gets hit, there's a chance they'll retaliate with some lightning damage. And what's really cool, in the last time that the wolf was updated, they gave it some lightning stuff in its tree, so you can actually build into the lightning. Now, I've never found the lightning to be as powerful as the other, such as cold or the physical builds or even dot builds, but you can still build into it. But there's some things we'll talk about where I hope they buff it a little bit so that it's better. We've got Lupine Endurance, which gives it more health, pretty obvious. We have the Stormcaller's Reprisal, which gives the lightning retaliation chance another 35%. If you add that with the 25 we just talked about, you can get up to a 60% chance every time your wolf gets hit to retaliate with lightning, and you can get, it'll also increase the spell damage by 35% of your wolves. This is a more damage multiplier. Now here's the main problem. Your wolves do not have a spell tag. Now once you take a lightning node, they will gain a spell tag, and then you have to build completely into spell damage. Now the reason that this would, to make it do good damage, the reason that this sucks is because your wolf's normal attack is not a spell. So you have two different types of attacks going on, and you're hoping they get hit. So then you'd say, okay, well, let's build into lightning so that we can get a lot more, maybe they can get a lightning spell, melee attack, which doesn't work like that, but Mana Strike is kind of like that for the Spellblade. But as you get into this, you get increased lightning damage. Cool node. Shaman's Bond gives you damage per point of attunement and health per point of attunement. Where if you go to strength scaling, it gives you 4% more damage per point of strength. But the fact that you can now get that with attunement allows you to scale differently, which is really cool. I'm almost thinking that's like if you build Shaman, like in the name. And then you have Storm's Jaws, which gives melee lightning damage. So they don't give you any added lightning damage option. Now that's the one thing that I don't like about this. This should be melee and spell lightning damage. So when you retaliate, you can do good damage with it. Then moving on to the right side of the tree, we'll start with On the Hunt. This gives more attack speed, move speed. This is really good. That attack speed, when you get to 50% attack speed, is actually really huge. The move speed is really huge as well. They start flying around the map really, really fast. We've got Call of the Wind. This gives you, yourself, haste for a few seconds, up to 3 seconds whenever howl happens. If you have howl set up to, have the chance on kill or your kill, you also have it on autocast on your skill bar. You end up getting haste quite a bit, which is really nice. You'll move around the map a lot faster. Then you have battle cry, which can make the duration of those last longer, and there's a chance that howl will happen when you hit a boss, which is really cool, especially in a high speed attack. You have a very high amount of attack speed with the Beastmaster, especially with aspect of the shark, so you can end up getting haste 100% of the time. I like all of these nodes. We got Relentless for stun immunity. Nice node, nice option to have in there. We have Canine Agility, which gives flat dodge rating as well as increased dodge rating per strength point. Again, another hybrid node that allows you to synergize your stats to help out your companion. Really like it. Serrated Claws, melee bleed chance, so they can have up to 100% bleed chance on attack. Another way, you can build into dots, which is really nice. Patient Hunters gives more bleed effect, damage over time. Crippling Wounds gives bleed duration, slow chance, and slow retaliation chance, which is really awesome. Then we have Howl of the Might for damage, dodge rating, and this bonus is tripled if you have howled recently. Good node. You have Leap Attack. So if you played the Sabertooth, the Sabertooth has the Leap Attack by default. You can actually get rid of the Leap Attack in there. For the Wolves, it's the opposite. You don't get it by default, but you can actually add it in. I'm not a huge fan of the Leap Attack, but you can definitely get it if you just like the cool animation of all of your Wolves all jumping in on a target. And then, of course, we have Safety in Numbers, which allows you to summon up the wolves to the companion limit. Now, I know for a reason that they put these on opposite ends. You have Pack Hunters and you have Safety in Numbers. But the one thing I hate is if you don't want to wear the Claw and you don't want to wear the Fang in the Amulet slot, because it does take an Amulet slot, which is a very powerful slot, and you turn it into a unique and then you can't, choose the stats on it. You have to build into this, and you have to build into Pack Hunters for that +1 companion, so you can really maximize the build. And it takes a lot of points to do those two things, where you start missing out on building into some interactive things. For instance, if I want to build into Lightning and I also want to have the max amount of wolves without using the amulet that gives you the summon wolves up to maximum companion limit, you have to use these, and you start getting spread thin on a lot of points. You can't build into anything else. It definitely won't be built into dots. You lose out on the ice bite, you lose out on some defenses, but we'll get into that when we start building this separate ways, which we're about to get into. Now, overall, I love the summon wolves tree. It has a lot of variety. There's a lot of different ways to build it, and a lot of them are viable. Even the lightning is technically viable, although I wouldn't take it into empowered too much, just because it won't do that much damage, but you can use it. It does work, and it's definitely fun to watch it as it plays, especially with the lightning whenever they get hit, which is pretty cool. Now, for cons, like I said, the one thing that this tree doesn't have is the ability for it to be viable with a solo companion node. If you've tried running a solo wolf, you know that it does not compare to any of the other companions. There should be an alpha node in here where you are able to build into just a single wolf, and some of the benefits in the tree are benefited more whenever a solo wolf option is clicked on and taken. Other suggestions that I would have for the Summon Wolf skill tree is adding a way for spell lightning damage flat added into it, not just melee added damage. And other than that, I actually just really like this tree. There's not too many suggestions. I wouldn't change it too much. I think that it works perfectly, and wolves are in a very viable spot as they are right now. I do know that when the nerf hammer comes to this health regen, I really hope that never changes. It makes it to where wolves can be really, really tanky with that 800 to 1000 health regen per second. It might be a little too OP. You might have to reduce that down to like 50% with 3 points total, but still, I like it the way it is right now. Alright, let's go ahead and get into some different ways to build it and just show how it works. So for build number 1, we're building into the Lightning Retaliation Wolves. And with this, we have it set up to where you have some health regen, but again, we're missing a couple of the points, so you're not capitalized on defense. But you have the maximum chance for retaliation. We got Stormborn with 25%, the Stormcaller with another 35%, which gives you a total of 60% chance to retaliate. We built into the added lightning damage, the melee attack lightning damage, the more damage per point of attunement, the more health, just so that if you do have some attunement, it's a big boost for them. And then, of course, we have the 1 point in Pack Hunters. If you build this way and you want to build into the retaliation, you have absolutely no room for all the points that would be required to get to safety in numbers, which means if you want to have more than the 1 or 2 wolves, the 2 wolves that you can have, that at this point you would have to wear the claw or the fang as a unique in the amulet slot. So that's a requirement. Now I am wearing those, and in order to actually show you this, I can't really go against the training dummy, so I'm going to go ahead and go into combat. I'm going to go in the arena for 5 waves and show you guys what it's like in there. But just remember this build, I'm not going to be using any of the other skills. We're just going to let the wolves do their thing, and you'll see some of the lightning come down and just what it looks like. Alright, so one thing right before we go in, I just wanted to shout out that when you do the lightning retaliation wolves, first off, they get the lightning tag. If you push alt, you'll be able to see this. I lied. No, you won't. If we go to skills and you go over them, you'll see they now have the minion tag. They have physical, lightning, spell, and melee. So you'll have both. You're basically running hybrid wolves. They have the lightning, they have the spell, they do melee and the physical. They also have added lightning for the melee. So if you build into lightning and spell and just basically minion lightning damage, you'll benefit the most from it. But you need both spell and melee damage for minions, or the minion damage overall, which is global for them. But the thing I love the most, they now have lightning circling around them, so they look pretty sick. I love that graphics. I kind of wish it was a little more lightning, like the more points you put into those nodes, the more graphical lightning that came around them. It wasn't just a 1 point does it, but I still like it. They look pretty cool, but from a distance, you know, it's kind of hard to see. I wish it was a little higher, but let's go ahead and look what it looks like when they start retaliating. Look at all that retaliation coming down. Lots of hits, lots of lightning. Now this build is not specifically built to have a whole bunch of minion spell damage on it. I don't have any of that on the gear. We do have lots of minion damage, but as you can see, lots of lightning. It's a really cool build, but you can also tell it's not the most damaging. I mean, we're not fully built into it, so we're not doing, you know, the most damage that we could do, but I have built into it before, and it's not like the most damage. Like, you're better off doing a physical attack with them. But it is something that I'll do a build on in the future, maybe even release a build with it when I release this skill discussion. Lightning wolves are cool. You can see their survivability is still really high. They're still getting a lot of health per second, especially with the new health flat and the regen they have. But again, it's just really cool to see all these wolves doing so much lightning damage coming down, and yet you don't have to do anything. Alright, let's go ahead and move on to build number 2. Alright, travelers, for build number 2 for Summon Wolf, I like to get into the Ice Bite. And the reason I like Ice Bite, and Ice Bite's my favorite, 1, it looks cool, but 2, it does a lot of damage, and it gives them an AoE so that they can actually clear out trash mobs and things extremely quickly. Now on single target, it really doesn't matter whether you go Ice Bite or Lightning or neither, because you're single target. AoE is not a factor, and it's just going to be you and how much damage you do and how quickly you can put it out with attack speed. And with aspect of the shark stacking, you can get just absolutely incredible attack speed. But with this, we went with 2 points in Savage Hunters, 3 points in Tundra Stalkers, and 4 points in Frozen Fang, so that you have that 40% chance with all 6 of your wolves to get an Ice Bite chance. And this Ice Bite's going to do 100% more damage. It converts all of your melee damage that you've added into cold damage, and then of course it has a radius that's increased by 100% so that you have a nice decent sized area that you're hitting. And again, it's just going to be a nice AoE that does good damage, and there's a good chance of doing, especially with 6 wolves, it means that 2 to 3 of them every attack are going to be having Ice Bite go off. Now with this, you do run out of points fairly quickly, and you would obviously like to have a level 21, 22, all the way up to 24 wolf to really capitalize on things. But with this, we have it set up to have some melee damage, some added attack speed, and then of course the +1 maximum companion, and still built into the Wolf in Recovery for that 300% health regen, because it's such a survivability factor. Now if you do get like a tier 7 of Summon Wolf, and you're able to have 4 extra points, you don't have to wear the Fang or the Claw, because with 4 more points, it's just enough points to get into safety in numbers, to where you'll get 20% more attack speed, you'll get the damage and dodge rating tripled if held, and then you can get into the Summon Up to Companion, which opens up the Amulet slot. And from there, if you do that, you can wear the Death Rattle instead of the Claw or the Fang, and get 200% crit multiform and build into getting 100% crit chance for your wolves. And that is a very, very powerful build, especially with aspect of the links, because their crit hits will then hit almost for double the damage, and they are very, very powerful. But again, that requires a tier 7 summon wolf tree, or you can take your points out of survivability and do it without that, but then they're more likely to die, and they'd have, even though they have decent leech, you'd have to have a lot of leech for them with the melee damage, build all the passives into it for them to still have good survivability. Now, it is possible to do it, but again, a tier 7 would be perfect with this setup because you could have them getting 800 health a second from regen, they'd have leech, and then of course you can open up the death rattle slot for that 200% crit multiform, and they just hit like a rock. So I'm going to go ahead and show you what it looks like when they attack with Ice Bite. We'll have them attack, and you'll just notice that Ice Bite is this nice circle AoE that clears them out. And you can see with 6 of them, even though they have a 40% chance on attack, you obviously are getting it 2 or 3 of them per attack that they do. And then you can also see you have the kind of the Ice Fang's mouth that looks, I mean, you have an Ice Bite, and it's really cool animated, it looks good. And it's my favorite way to play it. Ice Bite is definitely one of my favorite aspects to build the wolves. So that's going to be it for this one. Let's go ahead and get into build number 3, dot damage. Alright, for build number 3, what we're going to do with this is we're building into dot damage. Now, there's a bunch of different ways to build this, and for the most part, you don't even have to actually build into the dots of the tree, because you can get so many dots with other things. Entangling Roots can give your wolves a whole bunch of poison chance. You have Aspect of the Viper when you get a hit that'll give them 100% poison chance. You can get it on idols, you can get it on gear, both bleed chance and poison chance. There's a lot of ways to build into it, but this is how you kind of min-max upon it, on getting the effect for bleed, on getting more bleed chance and bleed duration into the skill tree. So the way we have it set up here, we got 1 point in canine agility. This opens up serrated claws, which means that on every melee attack they do, there will be 100% more chance for them to bleed. And when I say more, I just mean they have another added stack on top of whatever you get on everything else. It doesn't multiply or anything. 4 points in Patient Hunters gives them 60% increased bleed effect, which is a really powerful thing, especially since bleed is a physical damage and you can build into a lot of physical damage for your minions. This allows for bleed to do really good damage. This also gives multiplicatively more damage over time, which really increases the bleed damage. This is a very important 4 points to put in if you're building into a straight dot build. Remember, you'll have 6 wolves, and having 6 wolves gives you the ability to apply a lot of ailments, because each one has their own poison chance, and when you get multiple attacks per second, that's a lot of bleed and poison being added to the mobs. And then we have Crippling Wounds, which gives bleed duration, as well as slow chance and slow retaliation chance, which means when they get hit, they'll apply slow on a retaliation hit, and then on every hit they do, they also have a slow chance, so applying multiple stacks of slow is very easy for them. And then we don't have the point in safety numbers, but the reason I didn't do that is, as this isn't a crit build, you don't need Death Rattle to get good crit damage, so wearing the Claw or the Fang shouldn't be a big deal. However, if you don't, I did put an extra point in Stormcaller just so they have that retaliation. It's a smaller chance, 35% instead of 60. They get some spell damage, which you won't be built into a whole bunch. But what it does allow is that they look cool, because they now have lightning surrounding them. So that's cool. However, you can take this point out, and with just doing the minimum 20 points of skill, you can get safety in numbers, so you don't have to worry about getting the Claw or the Fang. You also don't have to have the Death Rattle, as this isn't a crit build. You could just craft a rare if you put a point in there and do whatever you want on it. We then got 2 points in Lupine Endurance. Then we got the 1 point in Earthborn, and I'm not 100% about the physical health leech, because is that damage they're doing, or is it damage on hit? I believe that the bleed will count, and they actually leech some of the bleed damage that they do, which really increases their survivability and kind of makes up for the 2 points that you lost in the health regen. And then of course the 1 point in Pack Hunters for that +1 maximum companion. It's kind of a necessity. You'll notice we take that in every build. Now, if there was a solo wolf node like I suggested, this might be something you don't take, because obviously you wouldn't want +1 maximum companion unless there was another node on top of having an alpha wolf that gave it even more damage per wolf you would have had, or per maximum companion that you could have had. So wearing Ardor's Legacy and taking this node would still be something that would be beneficial. Now again, like I said, this synergizes with a lot of other skills. You can synergize it with Edera's Blessing, you can synergize it with Entangling Roots, again, the gear, the passives, everything. Idols can have more bleed chance, poison chance for minions on them. It really allows you to build a lot of dot, and we have done dot builds with it before, especially with poison. They actually had to nerf a bunch of things. Entangling Roots used to give, I think, 150%, and now it's limited to 90% poison chance. I believe there was something else that got nerfed with it, but basically you used to be able to do way too much poison damage with wolves. It was absolutely powerful. Oh, they nerfed the nodes in here. You used to be able to get, I think it was 200% damage over time, and one of these used to give poison chance instead of bleed, and it was just really, really powerful. They ended up having to nerf a bunch of it to reduce it down, and basically turned wolves into a physical bleed build instead of a poison build, but you can still build poison with them, especially with aspect of the Viper. Alright, that is 3 different ways to build this. There are even more ways. If you wanted, you could build strictly into just Howling to give you that melee damage. If you yourself want to build into it, you can get buffs like Haste. But I'm not going to go into those right now. Those are not really a DPS version or an attack version of the Wolves. It's more like a buff just for you, and that's a solo kind of mode. But again, I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned something as we went over and talked about all of the nodes. I hope the different variety of builds. I hope you saw the lightning wolves and now you're thinking, man, I kind of want to build into those. I can tell you I will do a lightning build in the future. I was putting one together before, got distracted and just never really finished it up. But we'll get one of those out here in the future, hopefully before this next patch, because I'll be quite busy once that comes out. As always, stay safe, travelers.